What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and today we're going to be going over attacking with our weapons. So we have equipping items, dropping items, throwing items, and we even have some additional throw logic to damage enemies when you do throw the object. However, some of the stuff we actually don't have yet is attacking with the item. So really, what should happen is our attacks should be different based on the item that we have. Because depending on the item we have, we may not be interested in doing some of the regular stuff with it. So for example, if I use my basic attack with my character, it is this like overhead hit. And if I use my special attack with this character, it is this quick jab. Now, if I pick up a weapon, my animation should most likely change. Your walking animation could easily change as well, and your idle. But for now, we're just going to change the attacking animations. Now, these are random attacking animations that I have in here, and they do not fit with the weapon at all. I have a sword that I've attached, and I have a jab and a swipe on the opposite hand that I was attaching the weapon to. So that obviously doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of this being a sword. However, a lot of that polish is going to come later because I need some custom animations, or I need to update the attach points to fit with the Mixmo animations. And at the end of the day, this is just a template character. This isn't even the finalized character that I'm going to have. So ignore the animations making sense, but notice how the animations are different when I'm holding a weapon, and then when I throw the weapon, notice how the animations go back to the default. This is because the animations are reliant on the item that we have. Now that's really the only attachable actor I've made at the moment. However, after today's episode, you'll be able to see exactly how you can make animations specific to every type of item that we have. And you can group them together. Like in that case, I was considering that long pole like a sword. So if you have different swords in your game, like a lot of platform fighters do, or different hammers, or different throwable items, they can all use the same animation. So everyone doesn't have to be unique, but you can have a generalized list of like these items will use this animation, and so on and so forth. Okay, so to make this work, we're gonna have to touch both the code and the blueprints today. So let's start with the code, but before we do that, just want to let you know that we are, I think we're episode 31 even. We're getting pretty far into it. We still have plenty more to do, don't worry. We're barely scratching the surface. However, we're far enough along that if you're interested in checking out everything we've done and seeing how we got to this spot, you may want to do so. I'll leave the playlist right here in the top right corner so you can check out every episode so far in the series. That will also encompass future episodes as well. So if you're interested in seeing how far the series has come by the time you're watching this episode, then you can take a look at what else we've added to the playlist since then. Otherwise, I'll just show you part 1 of items. This is part 4 or part 5 of items, depending on how you want to look at it. And we have many more we're going to do. Platform fighters rely on items quite a bit for a lot of interesting gameplay. But these are still part of the basics, so I'll show you part 1 if you want to get caught up on specifically the item logic. Otherwise, I believe we're good to go. So let's take a look at one thing I want to change before we get started here. It's actually going to be pretty simple, but I think it's finally time we make this change. So when I started the series, I wasn't exactly sure what everything was named. I should have done my research. And I had explained that I did not know what they were named, and I named them different things. But now we're going to fix this because we're actually going to really be getting into the technical terms here, especially when it relates to the weapons and animations we'll be using. So I personally want to rename my Boolean and my functions from forward attack to be special attack. I have basic attack, which I think is fine, and then I want to call it special attack for this other one. So I'm going to change has used forward attack to be has used special attack. That way the terms are correct. You could call basic attack normal. You could call it smash attack as well, but in my opinion, the smash attack is when it's being charged and that kind of relationship. So I'm fine with leaving it as basic attack because we have the smash attack logic already in. But I do want to change this so that when I refer to it in the future, it's not confusing. And then the only other things I have to change in the code for that are the actual function names. Instead of forward attack, I'm just literally going to call it special attack. And technically, there's not a special smash attack, not in terms of Smash Brothers. In terms of platform fighters in general, you know, you could have a chargeable special attack, but it's not necessarily called a smash attack. So I'm going to call it a special held attack, because our logic that we have on our special there is still important. It still works and it's still useful. But I don't want the names to be confusing. So I've taken out the forward terminology everywhere and I've called it special instead. With that, I do have to update the usage everywhere. So a good way to do this when your Visual Studio is not freezing is to, you can search, you can copy this, Control F to find it, and you can use this find and replace. If you click this arrow, you'll be able to replace with whatever you put in here. We're going to type in the thing we want to replace it with. So we're going to put in has used special attack here. So it's replacing all instances of has used forward attack with has used special attack. You can hit replace all. It'll go through and do that for you for all four. It's going to be in the constructor, in the functions where we actually set it, and anywhere it gets reset. So you may have some other instances as well. Okay. And once you've done that, you're good to go here. You can see that that's fixed. We have to fix our function calls as well. So you can do the same thing if you like. Just find and replace, and instead of forward attack, make sure that you switch it to special attack. Replace all. Now note that you can match the case and match the whole word. So if I want to be very specific and there's other things that I could screw up here if I change it, then you may want to be careful and make sure that you match these. So long story short, you might want to switch this to current document. You don't have to. Depends on what you want. If you want to switch it everywhere like I did, you can pick current project. However, the problem with that is it will update some engine files like default input as well, which could be confusing, especially if you're not used to seeing it. So another alternative is all open documents, if you have all the documents open that you're actually interested in changing it in. Just some quick notes on find and replace. Not really necessary that you do this. And you'll notice that I can do this for the last instance here, which is forward smash attack, and I can make it special smash attack. Replace on all open documents. Okay, and now that fix is done. The only other thing you may want to do is you'll notice that since I did replace all, it replaced the actual name here. I'm going to go and switch that name in my inputs bindings. That way I have the correct thing. And that way I know in the future basic attack and special attack. Because forward attack was just incorrect. We were using it incorrectly initially, or really we were just using it differently initially and we never changed the name. Well, now it's definitely time. So with that out of the way, we can get into the actual logic for the episode, but I wanted to avoid any confusion. What we have to do is we have to define the logic we want to implement when using an item's attack. So items in platform fighters, Smash, and a lot of others, they will have at least two types of attacks. They will have your basic attack, assuming you are pressing the basic attack button while holding the item. They will also have an additional attack, usually called a special attack, that again is used by pressing the special attack button while holding the item. Of course, you can throw it and stuff, but we've already covered that, and that's in a different episode. So what we care about is in our basic attack and our special attack functions. We had done logic to check if we have an equipped item. Otherwise, we check if we're overlapping an item, and if we are, we equip the item, set the state to be equipped, and then we set the owner to be the character that equipped it, and then we use it if it has any sort of use when being picked up. For example, if it's a food item and you pick it up, then it's going to heal the player. But else, if there is no overlapped item, then we do our standard attack logic, which our attack logic also allows us to go into charge logic. Not important for now, but that's how this function was working. We did check if there was an equipped item before, but we never did anything in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the equipped item state to be the type of attack that we're using, and I'll cover this in a second. And then I'm going to still set our has used basic attack boolean to true. I'm assuming we can't charge this item's attack. However, it could be different for every single item. And smash attacks can also be different for that. So this is up to you. I'm going to keep it basic now and say if we're using the basic attack and holding an item, we're automatically going into the attack. We're not doing a charge. But again, it doesn't have to be that way. That's just what I'm doing for now. The possibilities are pretty much endless. Now, let's talk about this part. So, in the previous episode, we set up item states, and so we could track what the item was doing. If we go to our base item.h, you can see all of these item states here. These are actually the same states as I created the initial time, the initial episode we used these. However, I have changed just using to using basic and using special. This is going to be more important later because we're going to use this to determine what ability or what action this item should do, as they are going to have different ones depending on what button we press. So I have split it up from just using to using basic and using special, but it's not required that you do that. Okay. So in the basic attack, now I have the using basic is what the equipped item gets set to for the state. And then again, we just set the boolean to be true, saying we have used the attack. This is more so for the ANMBP state transition rule. Okay, I haven't changed the actual smash attacks for this episode, so they can be left alone, but we do want to go to our newly named special attack now. Now, we didn't have all the same logic because the basic attack right here, this part, this if statement, as well as the else condition here, is all talking about if we can equip an item. So if we're overlapping an item, can we equip it? Now, when we use our special attack, that is not a button that should equip an item. So we don't have that logic in here, so it's a little bit simpler. The else is the same as you saw above with the charging and all. But we're going to give it the same logic for the if statement here. If there is an equipped item and we're using our special attack, so we pressed our special attack key or button, then we want to set the equipped item state to be using special, and then we want to set our boolean has used special attack to be true. That way we know, oh, this item is in the special state or the special attack state, and the character is using the special attack. Pretty simple stuff. And for the special smash attack, make sure that you change the name. Remember, we changed it to special held attack. You should do this you should make this special held attack as well. Could have done it with the find and replace, but I was being silly and I forgot that we called it held as opposed to smash, because that is technically a more correct term in this case. And those are the 3 places you'll need to change it if you do it manually. Make sure you change it up here too. But now you're good to go in terms of the actual logic for items. Really, all we need to know is if we are holding one, make sure it goes to the correct state when we press the appropriate button, so either basic attack or special attack. And then if we actually use that item, then we want to go to the specific state in the ANMBP to make the character play the appropriate animation. The item will be controlling the specific logic that occurs, not the ANMBP. However, the character's animation should fit with it. Like you notice, if the character is holding the hammer, it is a totally different animation than when they're holding like the beam sword. And so that's determined by the ANMBP. And that's how we're going to do it. So I'm building here with the changes that I showed you. These changes should build perfectly fine. And then you can launch Unreal through Visual Studio, or just open it regularly like you do through the File Explorer. Once we get back in here, then what we're going to do is we're going to check our binding really quickly. Okay. Again, this is not required, but I think it's just nicer because I name my things strangely. So this is on me. I don't want it to go any farther than it has. So if you go to Edit, Project Settings, go to Input, and look at your names, we now have Basic Attack, okay, and Special Attack. Now, because of the keyboard mode fixes, we also have to update the other player names. So I'm going to do that now just to show you. So instead of forward attack, all my forwards are going to become special. Special Attack P3. Special Attack P4. And now all instances of the forward attack and special attack have been fixed up and should link up properly in the code. Alright, before we go into Unreal and do all that logic, there is one other thing we need to add, or that we can add to make our lives easier. So if we go back into our SSB template character.h, now that we've fixed up everything and all of our logic related to the using the attacks while holding items. We could also use something from base item, specifically the enum we were talking about earlier, this item type enum, to track what type of item the character or the player is using. This could be important for a few reasons. So one, our item has an item type reference that it uses. So it'll have this type of item type, and we'll know what type of item it is from that. Health pickup, mystery box, sword. Well, if we want, we can actually save out a reference to the type of item that the character has. And what this will do, it will allow us to actually use this in things like our anim BP to change our animations. You can also check to see if there is a currently equipped item, and if there is, you can grab the type from it. Either way, both ways are valid. I'll show you both because they're very, very minor change. If you want to do it this way, which I think is technically the more convenient way, you do have to set some more variables initially, but it should be good going forward. All you do is you make a variable of item type called item type in your SSB template character. Then in the constructor, make sure you set it to none to be safe. Then you won't have to actually set the type here. Okay, when you equip an item, we call this item's use item function. And so if we go in there, so specifically let's go to the base weapon BP because these are the only types of items that can be equipped currently. We have the event use item. At the very end of all the logic we did after we set the equipped item on the character, we can also grab the type from that item and set the character's item type. Quite literally, all you do, remember that this event use item has an owner, which is an SSB template character object reference. So dragging off of this, I can set the item type variable. And then I drag off my equipped item to grab the type so we know what type of item the character currently has equipped. That's pretty simple. And what that will do is that will always set this value when we equip a new item. Again, not required. However, having direct access to this does make it easier in the anim BP. All we have to do is check against this one enum as opposed to checking if there is an equipped item and what we should do with it. If you do decide to go this route, the other thing you need to do is actually reset this item to be none when we drop or throw it for any reason. So I go to my base item BP since they all have the event throw item and event drop item. And once the equipped item is detached and we reset equipped item back to null, I also drag off the owner to set the item type and set it back to the default, which is none, meaning they don't have an item currently. Nothing else in these functions have changed. So those 3 additional nodes, the 2 in the base item and the 1 in the base weapon, are all you'll need to actually set that properly. And once you do that, you're good to go with that method. So we're good to open up the anim BP now on our character. And so now we are going to have a few minor things that we have to fix because I changed my name from has used forward attack. So it's very simple. I can just replace them if I have them in the anim BP, but since these are code variables, I will need to get this right here, get has used special attack. So idle to forward. And okay, yep. Cool, and here we go. So now that we're in our anim BP, we fixed up our 3 errors that we have from my name change from forward attack to special attack. If you want to see them, they're right here. So in the return to idle and all the ended states for the attacks, which are transition rules that we put on our state machine. So when we actually go back to the idle state, what do we have to reset? We were resetting all of our booleans. Of course, when doing that, we have to now use the new boolean. Okay. The other two were from idle to the appropriate state. So in this case, I called it forward attack. Let's rename that to special attack. Make it nice and easy. And we'll call this one special held attack. There we go. And then our new state, idle to special attack, is also going to be using that boolean. So we will get to that when we get to that state. This part is very simple, actually. We can now check one of two ways to determine what item we have, and we can use that to determine what animation we want to go to. You could do this using a blend or by using different states here. Because I've broken up the basic attack and the special attack states into chargeable states, and I have not done that with the item animations yet, I've decided to put them into different states. However, it's very, very simple to use a blend by enum variable or node, and we will end up doing this in the future for a lot of the different item attacks to put this all into one node. So for example, we will have our sword, our hammer, our gun, whatever it is that we have as our weapon, and we can put them all in one node. So I may keep the standard attacks separated from the item attacks, but there'll still be a lot of grouping that we can actually do. Alright, but simply enough, all we have to do is make two new states. So right click, add state. I've added basic item attack and special item attack. Now with these guys, all I do is I go into them, I add my animations. So I've added this is my punch animation, but really this is my basic sword or basic item animation. Technically you should probably turn off looping, although it doesn't really matter. It's just good because it's going to return when the animation completes. Same with the special sword attack. So this is the special item attack. You can drag your animation in, turn off looping. And then we have to go over the transition rules. So right now I'm only allowing them to go from idle to the attack and that back to idle for both of these. But they're pretty simple in terms of logic. So let's click into idle to the basic item attack. Now, again, we only have one item right now, so we're only worried about the sword type of item. The other items we don't have in the game, so we don't have to consider them. Once we get more, we'll be able to change this logic up to determine more accurately what animation in the basic item attack state should be played. For now, here's what we have to do. We have to check and see if we've used the basic attack, and our item type variable is type sword. So literally, you just get your character reference, get your booleans, get item type. This is the enum that we set, remember? You drag off of this, type equal equal. You want equal enum, and you want to select the type. Then you drag off the boolean and type and. You want the and boolean node, and you drag the result in. There you go. And that's how you do this logic. Now, the alternative, if you did not want to use the enum here, what you could do is this. You drag off your character reference and type equipped item. You drag off of this and type is valid. You specifically want the one with the F, the function here, because it returns a boolean. So you can put this in the and then has use basic attack in the and then you could drag off of this and type and select type, get type, and then compare it against the type that you want. So you could pick sword. So you would have an and with 3 settings. You would just add a pin right here to do so. It's up to you if you want to do it. That does require a little bit more in your individual states, but it's not necessarily an issue. And it does allow it so you don't need this item type variable here specifically. But that's all up to your preference. So whatever you prefer. I'll stick with this for now. That's really all there is to it. At the moment, I don't even actually do anything related to hitboxes. because I'm going to show you how to create hitboxes for specific weapons and attacks. You could do it based on the NMBP, based off the hitboxes we have, but I think it's better to customize it based on the weapon, since the weapon and the items themselves will have their own depending on their attacks, and then we can grab that data and put that in the NMBP. But that's a different episode. There's a lot going on in that one to customize those, and so I haven't put that in yet. But feel free to set up the standard hitboxes that we have now. Again, they will work perfectly fine. You'll just have to do a little bit of manual editing to make them work for each weapon. In the transition back from basic item attack to idle, all I've done is I've clicked the automatic rule based here, which again, short version is basically if there's not another transition it can go to, once this animation completes, it's going to take this transition rule and go here. I've also set the transition event to be returned to idle, because if you look at our basic attacks, they have this as the start transition event, and that's because they reset our variables. So we want our variables to be reset once we're done with our animation, so that's why I do that there. Okay, and special attack is very, very similar, so this will be very easy. Instead of using the has used basic attack boolean, we're using the has used special attack boolean, and we're still checking for the sword. We're doing an and boolean, and there we go. That's simple. That's the only difference, is we changed this boolean out. As you can probably imagine, I don't have anything in the start transition event, but if you go to the special item attack back to idle, make sure it's automatic rule based, and I actually forgot to do it on this one because I'm silly, but this should be returned to idle as well. Okay, and with that, you're good to go with your actual animations, but you'll notice that these can kind of fight over each other, because the only rule to go to basic attack or special attack is has used basic attack and has used special attack booleans. Well, this has to be true to enter this state, but it also has to be true to enter this state. So what can I do? You can do two things here. You could actually do the is equipped boolean and check to see if it's valid. And if it's not valid, go into these specific attacks, the basic and the special attacks. Or what I like to do is just set the priority order. There's something called priority order on all these transitions. And if there is another rule that can be taken based on the same conditions, the one with the higher priority order will be taken after the fact. So as it says here, if multiple transitions out of a state go true at the same time, the one with the smallest priority order will take precedent, which means it will be the first one to be executed. So you can see that my priority order on my basic attack, idle to basic, and idle to special attack is actually priority order 2, but my idle to basic item attack and special item attack is actually priority order 1. So essentially, if I can ever enter these states, it takes priority over these states. Okay, and the last thing we will want to do is reset our items state when we're done with our attacks. Now this could be specific to each attack or its ability, but I'm going to show you what we do for now just to make sure that it is all working properly off this default case that we have. And so what we do is this. On our states where we return to idle and we do all this logic to reset our variables and booleans, that way we can return to idle and not go into a loop. All we have to do is actually reset the state on the item itself. So the item state was now being set to either using basic, like here when we use our basic attack, or using special when using our special attack. Well, once the attack is finished and we return to idle, we do want to reset the state so that it is being tracked properly. A very simple way to do this is if we drag off the character reference we have here, we can get equipped item like this, and we can right click to convert to validated get. Only if it's valid, then we want to drag off of the equipped item and set the state, just like that. And then you'll set it back to the default for this scenario, which in this case is equipped, not none. It's equipped because it's still equipped on our character. Now, assuming that the weapon breaks or something after use, change it to the appropriate state. But those are more specific cases, which we will be covering in the series. We will be doing specific weapon types. But for now, that is perfectly fine, and we'll do the job. Now, let's go into our base character BP real quick. and I'll fix up any errors here. These errors in my base character BP just come from the change in the name of the function. So I'm going to fix them up real quick. So instead of forward attack, what are we going to call it? We're going to call it special attack. Okay. And make sure we drag in our player references. Again, these are just for keyboard mode fixes, which is already a bit of a hack in itself, but it's so you can play as multiple characters on one input device, such as a keyboard. And so basically I can just copy these two now, and I can paste them in all of my scenarios. There you go. And now my base character should work. We will have to update our input actions as well. So instead of forward attack P2, we want to use special attack P2 and special attack P3 and special attack P4. Make sure you get that fixed up for your keyboard mode. You should compile and have no warnings. And we're good to go. We can now play our game. We'll be able to go to our weapons, equip them, and we'll be able to use different animations when we have them equipped than when they are gone. Again, if I throw it, I can then use my standard animations as opposed to my other, item-based animations. So anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please subscribe. Helps me more than anything else you can do, and I just really appreciate it. I want to give a huge, huge shout out to my YouTube membership and Patreon supporters and subscribers. Thank you all for the love and support. I really, really do appreciate it, and it really encourages me to keep working on these series. I love them, and I can't wait to see where we can actually bring them. If you had any issues with this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. It's completely free. I'll be happy to assist you with anything that you got. But like I said, that's all I got for you today, guys. So thanks again. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.